Are your kitchen and bathroom way overdue for a remodel? Well, I got the guy for you. Call John Sellers at First Response Contracting, 484-256-7136. Both residential and commercial services, and he's licensed and insured. Call him at 484-256-7136. First Response Contracting.
From real estate to real life and everything in between, The Brad Weisman Show. And now, your host, Brad Weisman.
All right, we are back in the studio, and this person has been a friend of mine for a really, really, really long time. And actually sang in her wedding at one point, too, which is kind of like some useless trivia. But we have Michele McCartney here in the studio. She is such a good friend. I've known her for a long time. She's been in the business she's probably one that's been in the business longer than me, which is usually tough to do. But welcome, Michele. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here.
I am too.
Is this your first time? No.
I think the first one time we did it, but it was before you had all this production.
Before all this. Yes. This is probably when I was just upstairs in the office. Correct. And it was kind of just a table or whatever, and that was that.
Yep.
Yeah, things have changed a bit. So let's talk about this stuff that you have going on. So you have a couple courses that you're teaching, or that you're sharing with the world. Let's put it that way. One of them is called Beyond the Script, and the other one that you do is called is accountability.
Yes.
We're going to talk mostly about the Beyond the Script today, but we're going to delve a little bit maybe into accountability also.
Okay.
So hold me accountable to that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get right into it. So you've been in the business 35 years, over 35. What is it? 37, 35?
36, 1988.
1988. There we go. What does it take? What is the special sauce that has kept you in this business for so long, selling real estate and being good at it? Not just that you're in the business, you're at a high level every time.
I think more than anything, what I love about what I do is the people that I help.
Cool.
It's just, I love helping families accomplish their goals, people trying to relocate, whatever it is. And over the years, what I really like is all the times I'm invited back for multiple transactions, or they've referred me to someone, or I'm now selling their first child a house. I mean, because that's what happens when you're in this business for so long. Or like they're on their fourth transaction because it was a first-time home buyer, then it was another house, then it was we need our forever house for all the kids, and oh, guess what? Now we're empty nesters.
Interesting.
Like, so much fun.
Talk about that whole circle of life right there, right? Isn't that something?
So it's
first
the people.
Buyer.
It's absolutely the people. It's absolutely the relationships.
And why do you think they come back to you?
Well, I would hope that they feel that I'm extremely competent at what I do. And also, I think that there's a great level of trust, and we have fun. I want to have fun. And I just, I help guide them through the process. I think it's because there's a relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship is what transcends time.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I just had people call me. I sold them their house 28 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And I send Christmas cards and other little things. But the bottom line is she just knew when it was time that I would get the call.
That you'd be the one. And it's amazing too. You know, that's something to say because, you know, they have a lot of choices.
They have so many choices.
Really,
and
you do.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful.
That's good. And I think that shows too. Gratitude.
I think it does.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go into a little bit about the courses that you've created. And the one that we're going to speak to now is called Beyond the Script. And I think we have to explain what that means. I think a lot of times in business today, and in our business and many businesses, you're taught to, if the person says this, you say that. If the person says this, you say that, which sounds very computerized if you think about it. You came up with, let's put that aside, basically those theories, and you're saying there's a whole different world beyond the script. Let's start. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Okay, so what that means to me is that when I always know when I answer the phone and there's a salesperson on the other end, when they are reading off a script or what their presentation is a scripted presentation. And the way that I know is they really don't care what I need. Mm-hmm. They haven't asked me a question. They don't even know if the phone call I've just received is relevant in my life. And it turns me off immediately. Like, you don't care about me. Why would I even want to listen to you? So in my mind, and scripts for years ago, the way agents used to procure leads was cold calling, picking up a phone book and going through 4 pages or whatever that was. And it was all about what they were going to say to the person when they answered the phone. And in my mind, it's the complete opposite that should take place. And that really, when you come into contact with someone, this is what I do. And is there something that I can do that would help you? Or do you need my services? Or would you possibly need my services in the future? And I would love to get to know you, or anything like that. Meaning it's about them. Yeah. It's nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Whereas the other way is more of a numbers game. It's a pendulum swing. They're just hoping at one point when they make the call, they're going to find somebody that is actually looking for what they're saying.
Yes. Or somebody that they just capture because they don't let them get a word in edgewise, and something happens. And I know that people feel bullied sometimes by someone trying to sell a service that way. And I just always felt like scripts, I don't know, there's something that you can practice. However, they should be put aside. They're just to teach you the basics about what type of business you are in, and what you should be expected to know at a certain level to answer questions. But it is not a way to establish rapport, create a lasting relationship. I don't think it builds trust. I think that what I really strive to do always is to see how I can fit into someone else's life and what their goals are. And when it's real estate related, it's right up my alley.
Right.
It's what I want to do.
Yeah. If it has to do with like fixing a motorcycle, it could be a situation that we're not in. That's not going to work so much. Yes. Got it. And I think what's interesting, John Maxwell, who says a lot of really cool quotes, he talks about, we all know how to communicate. Few know how to connect. And for the longest time, I used to call you the Master Communicator.
Oh.
No, what I found is actually what you are is the Master Connector. Oh. You are that, because that to me is what's more important, because it's true. And I think when you think about scripts, that is communicating. It's all it is. It's reading a piece of paper. It's saying, okay, they said this. I look at my paper and go, okay, I need to say this. Okay. That's communication. That's all it is. You're communicating a message to somebody else. When you connect, it means that you listened and now you're responding and helping them hopefully with what they need.
And here's the other thing about speaking from your heart and paying attention to the person that you're in front of and in the room with is I've learned over time where I may think I'm entering into a difficult conversation and I'm apprehensive. Maybe something's not going right with a real estate transaction or something. And what I have learned is that when I don't go into the conversation with a preconceived notion, when I'm not trying to lead my buyer or seller to a conclusion inside that conversation, if I don't do that and just get on the phone and simply communicate and leave silence as part of the conversation, what comes from it is the possibility of the conversation going someplace neither party ever knew it was going to go. And I've been so surprised so often where I thought I was going to have a difficult conversation and I was going to try to figure out how can we come up with a solution that works, where the person on the other end of the phone offers the solution. Yeah. And I didn't have to, it didn't come from me. And when I got on the phone, I had no idea where we were going to go. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned along the way is how silence in a conversation can serve the conversation and the two people in it. And that it gives people time to talk, reflect, and then move the conversation sometimes to a completely different place.
And then also, what about there's times where we want to blame.
Yes.
We want to blame. That's what happens in a conversation too. We want to blame somebody for whatever the conflict or whatever the challenge is.
And I got to tell you, at a very young age, I learned to apologize. And sometimes I would even apologize for things that weren't totally my fault or responsibility, because an apology can clear the playing field, so to speak, clear everything off, give you a place to launch from again, where you can heal a conversation, heal a situation, solve a situation.
Yeah. Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that, when you're saying about the phone call too, I think what happens too is we get anxious. A lot of times when I need to call somebody, and not to say it's bad news, but it's challenges that come up in a transaction. And we talk about real estate, but this can be anything. This could be a personal situation. This could be, any kind of business. The anxiety starts to take a hold because you're playing out in your head ahead of time how it's going to go. So, and typically what happens is, because we're human, there's fear of the unknown, because we're not sure how it's going to go, but you have all these scenarios. So you're saying, pick up the phone, communicate what's happening, and then see where it goes.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of looking at your car covered in road salt and winter grime, or not quite getting the results you would like to see from the car wash? Well, I've got just the solution for you. The Detail Shop, your go-to destination for premium auto detailing.
Yes, and especially if it is something that may not be good news.
Yeah.
I have found the very best thing to do is just pick up the phone, make the phone call and say, well, I have some news and it's not the best. It's going to be challenging. I have some ideas to solve it, but, and say it right off the bat.
Yep. Get it out.
Get it out.
Swallow the frog.
Swallow the frog and don't duck and weave.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and
true.
And then be quiet for a little while.
Yeah.
You gotta say it, and then and they're going to, you don't know, they're going to be like, okay, what is it? What's going on or whatever. I have to have one of these conversations.
What, today?
Tonight.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just record it, Hugo. What do you think? Just pick up the phone and record it. We can do that right here. You're like, no, I'm good. But
the thing is that I always like to just start the conversation with the real reason why I'm calling.
Yeah, it's not going to be a fun conversation, but here we go. Yep, got it. Instead of trying to be like, hey, everything's good, and then go into bad news. Just get it out. Yeah, get it out. I like that advice, because I don't think I do that.
Ooh.
No, I don't think I do that. I think I actually come across, oh, hey, how's everything going first? And then I go into things, we got something to talk about.
And what's interesting, okay, so let's talk about authenticity.
Yeah.
That first minute that you're in that conversation, you are honestly, you're
not authentic.
Being inauthentic.
Right, because it's...
You're like positioning, you're jockeying for position and trying to get yourself comfortable.
Yep. You're exactly right.
Where
That's so true.
Okay, you're not comfortable. Yeah. It's okay.
It's all right. Yeah, just say what you need to say. Yeah. This is my therapy session,
right.
Just so you know. So we talk about the business, and then you had said, it says on here, it's not what you want to be, it's who you want to be.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay. Well, it's the difference between someone who sells real estate and someone who's a realtor. When I say, okay, I'm going to tell a story. Can I tell a quick story?
You could definitely tell stories. This is a storytelling podcast.
Please.
We love stories.
This is a Brad Weisman story.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, years ago, I got a call from some people that were referred to me. They were selling a rancher in Wernersville. And we started talking about things, and their listing contract was up in about 3 days. And they said, we don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. We had a second showing, and we don't know if we're getting an offer or not getting an offer. And I said, okay, let me find out what's really going on. And they said, I said, who is the agent that showed the house? And they said, it's Brad Weisman.
Yes.
So I called Brad Weisman, and Brad Weisman said to me, I'm writing an offer right now. And I called the people back, and I said, guess what? You're going to get an offer. And it's going to be a good offer. And I don't know why your agent doesn't know any of this information or hasn't communicated it to you, but it's great news. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you went to all that trouble and made those calls and you're not going to get anything now. And I said, when someone asks you to refer a good realtor, pass my name along.
Absolutely.
So what's the point? It's who I was.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. Oh, I don't want them to know. I don't want Brett. No, it was like, where are they sitting?
Yeah.
And how can I help them?
Yeah.
And however it happens, it happens.
Yeah, that's good. There for a second, I thought that was going to be a bad story about me. I was like, oh, geez, did I not call somebody? I'm like, why is she sharing this story?
It's a good
No, that's
story.
A good story. Because you had nothing to gain.
Nothing.
You had nothing to gain.
I didn't.
Yeah, you just knew that they were stressed out.
They were.
And it wasn't fair for them to be in that position.
They weren't being communicated with.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. No, I get you. So that's interesting. So it's who you were at that moment.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really cool. So this was I like the energy between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. Wow. I like that. And and then you have to see the human story, not the house property. That part is really good part, because I think in our industry, we either see the commission, we see the commission, we see the house. We're not looking at the people. Like, what is going on in their life? You know, do they have a newborn that every time there's a showing, they got to shuffle out of the house or put a dog in a crate or take the dogs, whatever it is. I think a lot of times we definitely lose sight of that in our business. And I think that's what you're speaking to there? Or
you said
two different things. One was the energy people when they feel seen, heard, and value. The energy between two people it was.
Well, that's connection.
Connection.
In a heart. That's just that's the sum of a connection when it's looking into someone's eyes and speaking from your heart. I always say that even when something goes wrong, even when you have to communicate something that someone may not want to hear, when your intention inside that communication is pure to some extent, meaning you don't mean any harm. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It's about the intention of the communication. And I teach that we all make mistakes. It's that we're human. But if your intention is to be perfect, then you are. Yeah. Because inside that conversation, when something goes wrong, your intention is going to make you make the call right away and work through it, because you can't control everything. So behind the scenes, it's about being intentional. And then and being intentional in a conversation means that you look people in the eye, that you have their very best interest at heart, that's the space you come from.
Yeah. And then that makes the conversations then, whether they're good or bad, makes them easier. It makes them more believable. And also it keeps your integrity intact.
Well, they feel you, that they know, like, you really care.
Yeah.
And so, and they know that you can't control everything. And so, I don't know. I think that it's a way of maintaining relationships for a very long time through many different things. Yeah.
I think, and things too, and I think when you get into the next thing, seeing the human story, not the house property. I know that you've, the story with the older woman.
It's a very, it's a realtor story. Yeah. Okay. But it's kind of fun. So my photographer told me that he was in a house that he didn't think should have been photographed at all. And it was, an older woman by herself. And there was dog hair everywhere. And it was he goes, Michelle, I just can't believe nobody took the time. Yeah. And, and in my class, this is what I say. I say, okay, so I'm just going to suggest that I'm going to walk in that house and I'm going to sit down with that 85-year-old woman and I'm going to create a connection and we're going to laugh and we're going to joke around and I'm going to get her to a place where I actually can say, where's your vacuum cleaner? And she's going to tell me where it is.
That's a tough one.
And I'm going to say, is it okay if I vacuum a little bit before we take pictures? And I'm going to clean her house for her. And I'm going to straighten up whatever I can straighten up so that when the photographer comes, the pictures of her home are as good as I can possibly make them. Why? Well, she's 85 years old, and this investment could be the only investment she has and the only money she has to move forward. It's very important. And I have pride, a sense of pride, so I want to do it, but it's what's best for her.
Yeah.
It's how I'm going to get the most for her house for her.
Yeah.
So photographer happens, everything happens, the house ends up, obviously it's going to sell for more money given the time that I took to declutter, stage, and clean for her. But then there's a silver lining to it all. Maybe she has 3 kids. And maybe they're looking at their mom's house online going, oh my gosh, can you see
Who did that?
who did that?
Yeah, right.
She's all excited. Her house is selling for more. Her kids feel like she was cared for. They're impressed. And then all of a sudden you have a family talking about what you did. And but I didn't do much.
Yeah.
You
cared.
I vacuumed a house.
You cared.
And I cleaned up and straightened up.
Yeah.
And so that's
was a tough,
that's seeing the human story.
without her feeling bad.
You got to connect.
You know what I'm saying? You got to connect, because that could have gone a different direction if you don't have the skills that you have in doing the connecting with people, because it could have been she felt bad that her house didn't look good or whatever, you know what I mean? But she didn't. You were there as a friend at that point, helping her out to make it look the best it could look. And that's great. I love that story. It's a great story. So let's go into the hug instead of a handshake. This is a unique Michele thing, because you talk about, also people forget what you do, but they never forget how you make them feel. And that's part of the whole hug instead of a handshake. Let's talk about the hug instead of a handshake. What does that mean? Like, where did you come up with that?
I'm a hugger, and my clients hug me. And when I first noticed it, it was at settlement tables. And what I noticed was across the table, they were shaking hands. And on my side of the table, we were hugging. And it happened over and over and over again. So I knew there was something different. And so I coined that phrase, what does it take to get a hug instead of a handshake? And inside that conversation is where you get everything else, the connection, integrity, authenticity, all those things. They're all wrapped up into what does it take to get a hug instead of a handshake. And I will tell you, this is my personal opinion, is when someone hugs you, you've touched them. When someone hugs you, they remember you. You've touched them. And like, I stage houses. I go into people's houses and I spend hours and hours with their families, their dogs, their kids, whatever it takes. And I get hugs all the time throughout the whole transaction. It's just, it's a very powerful thing. When someone looks at you and the handshake just doesn't do it. No. They have to hug you.
The handshake is just so much more distant. And I think also when you allow somebody into your space, into that space, that is definitely trust. Once again, it just builds a bond and a connection that you don't get from a handshake. It's just not going to happen. I'm a hugger too.
It's funny.
It's not like, hey, my name's Brad Weisman, I'm a hugger. But it's funny that I do too. And some customers, it takes them a little while to get them warmed up to that. At first they're like, oh, okay, we're going to do this, huh? That kind of a thing. But I'll tell you, after you work with them, they expect it then. And even at settlement, like you said. Yeah, they feel it. They feel it, yeah.
A handshake is just not appropriate for what we just went through, the journey we just went through, and how connected we feel.
Absolutely. I agree with 100%. So let's talk about one of the other things, only a couple things here I want to go through, because we could be here for an hour, I think.
Are we out of time?
Not yet. We're getting there. But no, the thing that I'd like to hear was the inspiration, motivation, action versus action, motivation, inspiration. A lot of people say, okay, you need to be inspired first and able to be motivated and able to take action.
Correct.
And you're saying,
the opposite.
It's the opposite. You make the action.
Take the action.
And that will motivate you and then inspire you.
Then you become inspired. So do you want the quick story?
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay. The quick story is leg day. We all hate doing legs. I do have people often ask me, how I work out on such a regular basis for so many years. And I do. It's, it's, been
You
a
have
lot
ever
of
since
years.
I've known you. It's been,
And they think that it's easy.
it's not.
And I'm like, it's,
Or do they also think that you get up going, I can't wait, right?
and so basically what I say is that I get up just like everybody else. I don't want to go to the gym and do legs. However, while my brain is saying, I don't want to do this, my body is walking into the closet, putting workout clothes on. And all the while I'm discouraged and I don't want to do it either. But I'm now walking into my car and getting in my car, despite what my brain is saying, I'm in action to support what I've promised myself.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation, being your word. And the first person you need to be your word to is yourself. And, you know, and then I'm in the parking lot and I still don't want to go in because I don't want to do this, but I go in anyway. And now I've done the first exercise and I'm relieved and I'm motivated to keep going now because I got here. And at the end of my 45 minutes of doing legs, and when I walk out of that gym, I am inspired for the day. Like it's so crazy.
I agree with you 100%.
Just like we all get so afraid, like picking up the phone and calling someone, or I don't know. There's so many things in life that are like that. Whereas if you just
do it,
quiet your brain and do the action. It's amazing what happens. It's amazing what happens.
I'm reading a book right now by David Goggins. I don't know if you've heard of who he is. He's a Navy SEAL who was against all odds. He became a Navy SEAL and one of the top Navy SEAls. And in his book, and I'm just reading this, and you had this written before, but he's talking about when he trained, it was just get up, just do it. That, you know, and he said the whole time he was going out to train. Now Navy SEALs go through some serious stuff. He would say, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to swim 2 miles, or I'm going to go into the lake that's frozen because I know my Navy SEALs training is going to require that, and that's how he trained before he even got there. So you know, that's the kind, you just act.
And what's really cool about acting and then seeing where it goes is that you can break down action into small things that you can accomplish.
Yes.
And versus trying to wrap your brain around being inspired to get motivated to blah, 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 blah. Where in that conversation, how often we just get stuck.
And the time spent.
The action doesn't even take place.
You're so right.
It stays in your brain.
During COVID, I decided I'm going to do a podcast. I just acted. I bought the equipment. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I just bought the equipment, started doing it. If I would have sat there and waited for inspiration for it to happen, and then I would have to get motivated to do the show. And I didn't know, you know, Hugo, I've been doing this now for going to be 4 years in April. And it's the same kind of thing. If you have something you want to do, just do it. The rest will figure itself out.
As you were saying that, Brad, I just remember that, you know, Nike just built a brand in just that one. In that
exactly right.
Of, hey, don't think about it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. And
so true.
That became their
that is their thing till this day. You know,
if human beings aren't in action, nothing happens. And if nothing happens, we sit at home. And if we sit at home, life is not
pretty much die.
It's just not rich.
It's not.
It's not rich.
Yep.
So, you know, and it's really funny because there was a time it was my mom who said this to me. I was troubled by something and I was in college and we were on the phone and she said, sweetheart, I don't care if the decision is right or if the decision is wrong, move. And she was so correct.
Yes.
Because you can move just the tiniest bit in one direction and it illuminates something that you didn't see. And that is so powerful.
It's very powerful.
It doesn't have to be right. Just
do
move.
something. Yeah, move it.
Because it's going to show you something. It's going to show you another possibility.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
So we're going to end with this phrase that I love that it stood out to me from everything I was reading on all the things that your course has, is that service is taking action to create value for someone else. And I just wrote down, love this. That is just a great quote. What does that mean to you? I mean, where did you come up with that? And you know, it's just really, it's a great explanation for service. I love it. I don't think I've ever heard it.
I mean, again, it just comes from the whole conversation of beyond the script and the connection and wanting to be of service. That's, if you tie that conversation in with integrity and being your word, it's very, very powerful walk.
Right.
You know, if you want to be in the service industry and you decide, and that is what being of service is, or being of service is bringing value to whoever it is you're serving, whether you're serving coffee in a restaurant, pumping gas at a gas station, ultimately you're bringing value to that person through your service.
Yeah. That's cool. It's awesome. I love it. So we're going to have you back, obviously, because I want to have you back. I want to definitely have you come back and talk about the accountability course that you have, because you're doing that in some different bigger companies. You've done it. It has definitely changed some people's lives in those companies. I know that. And I'd like to have you come back and talk about that. So if you would be willing to do that, that'd be awesome.
I would.
All right,
so
awesome.
Much.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Fun.
All right, there we have it. That was amazing. Michele McCartney, she's in the business over 35 years. Just a great agent, great friend, and I'm glad that we got to be to share that with everybody out there. We'll see you again next Thursday, 7 p.m. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere else. All right, thank you. Are your kitchen and bathroom remodels a little overdue? Well, now's your chance to call First Response Contracting. John Sellers will take care of you. 484-256-7136. They do residential and commercial, and they're licensed and insured. Give them a call at 484-256-7136.